defense is legit as well. I don't think you can dismiss them, at least in my opinion. I don't think you can dismiss them being a formidable defense after you hold a team in the college football playoff without a point, a single point. And I mean, as great as IU was in their first college football playoff game, they also did not hold them scoreless. So those two things stand out to me. Quarterback, when you have a chance to have the best player on the field, which I'm not saying Dante Moore is, you do have the Heisman on IU's roster, but in certain moments he could be. So that gives me a little fear.
Yeah, I look at Oregon. The one thing that they're going to try to figure out is how do they stop the pressure that they faced against that Indiana front seven. That was all over them. That was the difference in the football game. Certainly, Dante Moore had never been pressured like that at any point in the season up until then. He's a very talented quarterback. They have great skill position players. If they can figure out a way to just give him that half second more time, that's what worries me. The ability to look at what happened in that first game, make a couple of adjustments, protect him a little bit better, they can score points. That's the worry that I would have.
Yeah, I'm pretty bullish on the IU defense. So
I love their defense. I'm just saying, you asked me what worries me. That scenario worries me.
James, I think you brought up the other day, like Oregon maybe hitting a few, huge chunks. I think that's going to be vital for them to try and create points and move the ball. And then on the flip side, I watched pretty much that entire Texas Tech game. Comparing that Texas Tech quarterback to Mendoza is like comparing me on the golf course to Scotty Scheffler. It just would be ludicrous. And so I just think Mendoza will handle, first off, I don't think that Oregon D-line will affect the quarterback as much as they did in that first matchup. And, a sneaky thing about Mendoza, I don't think it maybe looks as the prettiest looking at times when he's running it, but he's effective when he makes a play with his legs. And I do think that part of it could come in really handy.
He gives me like the no, yes vibes when I see him move, because I'm just like,
it's
this
kind
is
of an
gonna be
awkward
bad.
runner.
But it works. And he's smart enough, to his credit, at least when he's finishing his runs, he always gets down. Yeah. If you do that, I'll love you.
Yeah.
But I mean, when you think about it, these teams are what? Combined 27-1 on the year?
Yeah.
The one loss is to the other one. They allowed a combined 3 points in the quarterfinal round. We could be looking at the first two picks in the draft. If you were going to rank college football coaches right now, I think a list, you don't get very far on the list at all before you get to Coach Signetti and Dan Lanny's names. This is a very juicy matchup.
These are now heavyweights.
I don't know nationally if it's resonating because maybe the brands aren't whatever, Bama, Georgia, Ohio State, etc. But damn, this is on paper, this is about exactly what you would want in a semifinal matchup coming up on Friday.
I think the country looks at Indiana a little bit differently after that Alabama game because they were so in control of that football game. They dominated both sides of the line of scrimmage. Their position players, certainly the running game, was way better than Alabama's running game. They were just clearly, if you watch that game, you look at that game and you go, yeah, Indiana would win this maybe 10 times out of 10, if not 9 out of 10. And I think a lot of people saw that, hey, yeah, the record's great these last 2 years. We've heard about Kurt Signetti and Indiana, but if you haven't really watched them and you watched that game the other night, they spanked Alabama. Like that game was not close.
How much do you think that's a conversation still? Is Indiana for real? For like, not us.
For some people outside this region.
Like if you had to put like a number on it out of 100.
I mean, those people are idiots at this point. I mean, they just won at Oregon, Ohio State on a neutral field. And I get that it's not.
No, I'm saying to the point about people being idiots. I think the number is pretty low now because I just don't.
Yeah, it better be low. And again, I'm not going to act like this is normal Alabama, but still, beat the brakes off them on a neutral field as well.
It might be normal Alabama now. I mean, you look at the landscape of I get what you're saying, like the history of Alabama.
I mean, 2012 Alabama.
But yeah, I mean, this is a brave new world we're living in right now. And so I'm just very curious to know anyone out there who probably doesn't think they're the favorite at this point.
It's wild to sit here and say it would be a disappointment if Indiana doesn't win at all.
And think about this.
But that's
right. I don't want to go there, but
but that's
feels
like the current land. Like that's how it
would.
And again, that is a credit to them. Like you earn the right to be in that category. With how they've played this season, they have earned the right. I mean, look at the Vegas odds, Mark. Look up the national title odds.
Yep.
If you look at it right now, Indiana is relatively close to even money to win it all. And again, some of it probably has to do with the other side of the bracket is a 6 and a 10, and it's not whatever Georgia, Ohio State on the other side of the bracket. But again, Indiana already beat Ohio State.
But extrapolate it, Kevin. If they end up winning these next 2 games, they will have had not only will they be 16-0, that have been 5-0 against anyone they played that participated in the college football playoff. Think about that. 5-0 against teams that played in the playoff.
Yeah, I mean, and again, how many of those games away from home? All of them, right?
Yeah.
IU is plus 128, the outright winners of the national championship. Oregon plus 315, Miami plus 340, Ole Miss plus 550.
Again, plus 128. What's that? $10 to win 12?
Pretty much, yeah.
So, yeah, that's it's a big nod from
Great investment
from Vegas.
All right, coming up in a moment, we'll talk more Colts. Stephen Holder had some interesting things to say and write about all the things that have happened with the Indianapolis Colts over the last 48 hours. We'll talk to him about those things next as we continue the Fan Morning Show, 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
Listening to the Fan Morning Show on Sports Radio 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Good morning. Hope you're having a good Wednesday morning. Hopping in your car, getting ready for the day. We've got you covered here with all the very latest on the Colts and the Pacers, who are struggling right now. Give you everything you need to know in about 5 minutes, coming up in about 15. But right now, we want to check in with one of our favorite guests, Stephen Holder from ESPN.com. He covers the Indianapolis Colts, and he joins us on the Payless Liquors hotline. Happy Wednesday, Stephen. Nothing going on in the world of anybody who covers the Colts this week, correct?
What are the Colts? I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's we're trying to figure out what the Colts
not
are.
Playing this week, I will say that.
Yeah, trying to figure out what the Colts are at this point in time, aren't we?
Yeah. I mean, it's a pivotal time, but we're trying to figure it out. I mean, I thought this week was a perfect encapsulation of just a lot of years of frustration among the fan base. So I get it, and I do think the Irsay family is probably not surprised by it, but I don't know that there's a perfect way to deal with it, right? So that's kind of where we are.
So, Stephen, we talked to you last week on these airwaves. You were pretty confident that no changes were going to be made. Now, why were you that confident back then before it had officially been announced?
Well, because all the conversations I had indicated to me that the I guess inside the building that they were talking about next year, and they were on to next year at that point. And you don't have the comfort level to have those kinds of conversations unless there's a comfort level with your job, and it just seemed very clear to me. The other thing is that I think in reality, look, obviously rebooting right now would have been an easy thing to do in terms of making fans happy, but I do think it was much more complex than people maybe realized. It is risky to go forward and move forward with Chris Ballard and Daniel Jones coming off an Achilles and the track record of Chris and all that. That has its own risk, but I also think rebooting now was complex, and I don't know if they were ready to go there, to be completely honest. I think next year, if it fails, I think it's an easier reboot next year, but we'll see.
Stephen, attempting to clear up, a couple of maybe gray area comments, and if you could maybe throw out what you think the black and white of it means. Let's start with the higher sense of urgency than last year. That gray area means what to you, black and white wise?
Yeah, I think, well, first of all, I wish we didn't have to interpret as much, but I also understand why Carly would never come out and say, if we don't do X, they're fired. I would never do that as an owner. Okay, I will defend her on that, but you have to communicate it better, I would say. To your question, I think it's pretty clear, actually. I think they got to do something big. I don't think it can just be 9-8, get a wild card. I mean, they have to be. I think they have to be a team that's doing something. They have to be going somewhere. All right. If you're saying we think we're on to something, we think we were one of the best teams in the NFL. We traded for Sauce Gardner because we thought we could be in contention for the Super Bowl. Well, then that tells me that's the conversation we need to be having. I'm not saying they have to win the Super Bowl or go to the Super Bowl, but I mean, I think it has to be something very tangible that they can say, this is real progress. Making a wild card is not necessarily real progress because you can do that in the same sort of rough neighborhood of record that they've been in the last couple of years, right? So, I mean, 9-8 can get you in the playoffs, but does 9-8 mean you're going somewhere as a franchise? No, it does not. So, at least for me, that's what I think it means. I think you have to be showing that we are going somewhere and that it's sustainable. That's the other thing. It has to be sustainable. If it's a 1 year, who the hell cares, right? It has to be sustainable.
Okay, and the other answer that I think was a little bit of gray area, and again, I understand why, but the old tied at the hip. Are they tied at the hip? One was hired in 2017, and Chris Ballard. Shane Steichen was hired in 2023. Carly's answer to that was, I guess we'll find out next year on this day. Part of me when she said that was like, da-da-da-da. Do you think there could be a chance we get to next year, Black Monday, and all of a sudden she views one of them differently than the other, and we get a moving forward of the franchise of one is here and the other is not?
I mean, I think that answer is an admission that she doesn't know, and I think that's okay. But I think the takeaway from it is that we could see a situation like that We could. I think she left the door open. I think we have to at least say that much, and then we'll see what happens next year. But that was my interpretation of it. Is it's very possible, frankly.
Stephen Holder joining us on the Payless Liquors hotline. How does Chris Ballard go about improving this roster in the offseason? A bunch of unrestricted free agents, no first-round draft pick. Where does he go?
Well, I think the other takeaway I had, again, the need to interpret is unfortunate. But one of the other takeaways I had was that I think Carly Ursay is on board with, like, let's go do something big. I mean, that was one of my takeaways. I mean, she actually said one of the reasons she decided to keep Chris Ballard is because he decided to get off his butt in free agency and do some more aggressive team building, right? So what does that look like, though, this year is the problem, or this year, I guess. They do have limited resources, certainly from the draft pick perspective. I think they can open up some salary, and they're going to have to make some tough choices. So if you have been told that everything is on the line this year, and you're Chris Ballard, well, then you can't worry about hurt feelings, man. All right, they're going to have to part ways with some players that he might personally like and think are good for the locker room, but on Sundays maybe don't hold up their end of the bargain. You know, we can debate who that is, right? There are several veterans that they can look at, but I do think the roster will look probably more different last year than we have, or next year, than we have seen in the past in terms of roster changes, because they do love continuity. There's no question, right? But continuity's got you with your job on the line, so good job with that, right? So they have to be more aggressive in how they shape this roster, and I think we saw the beginning of it last year. I think we'll see more of it this year.
One last one from me, Stephen. When you look at the quarterback situation, should there be a contingency plan built in beyond Riley Leonard possibly stepping in for a few games with Daniel Jones still recovering from an Achilles injury?
Yeah, I think that's a difficult choice, right? I mean, I could make an argument for or against it. I don't know. I think I lean toward yes, right? Because that Achilles situation, I know they're optimistic. Okay, that's great, but you're dealing with a devastating injury here. I think it's risky. I really do. I'm not saying they're wrong, because I don't know what other quarterback can come in and do what Daniel Jones did last year. I don't know who they can get that could possibly do that.
Well,
so
you tell Fernando Mendoza to tank his interviews, and then he ends up in the second round, and you draft him.
Shedeur number 2, right? Look, I don't know. I think it's they have to weigh that very carefully. I'm not giving a good answer because I think it's really tough. I really do. I think there's something there with Riley Leonard. I am not. I am not all the way on board with the Riley Leonard hive. Okay, like Riley Leonard is the next, Tom Brady. He's not. I think he's probably a backup in the NFL, and maybe a short stint starter if you need one. So we'll see. That's a tough call, and I don't know the answer, to be completely honest with you. I think it's a close call, really close call.
Steven, I apologize if you kind of answered this when Jeff threw it your way, but like this time last year, the first week of January, I think we all were under the impression two things were either happening or about to happen. One, the defensive philosophy was going to change. Gus Bradley was gone, and they were going to hire a new defensive coordinator. Obviously, that became Lou Anarumo. The other thing that we knew was Chris Ballard said, for the first time really ever, that he needed to change his free agency philosophy. And again, 2 months later, the actions backed up those words. As we sit here now, albeit 24 hours from Ballard talking, you mentioned earlier, maybe parting ways with some vets. I don't see like obvious staff changes really at all.
Right.
Am I missing something? The lack of a first-round pick hamstrings you a little bit. They do have cap space. Granted, a big chunk of that's got to go to the quarterback, and you would think Alec Pierce. So I guess I'm lacking clarity on what might be different this offseason, or is this largely, hey, it's going to be a run it back, and we'll just bank on better health?
I mean, that is, I think, the biggest part of it. Let's be honest, right? The biggest part of it is they are praying to the football gods, okay, who have not been kind to them, okay? And I'm borrowing from Jim Irsay here. He loved the football gods, or loved to talk about them. And So that's the biggest part of it. But I do think you've got to make maybe some smart, savvy moves. And look, they maybe won't be headline moves. Okay, they're going to have to make some smart, savvy moves. And Chris Ballard has done this before. In fact, it's the only time he's ever gotten anything out of the pass rush is when he has made those kinds of moves. So figure it out. Find that second tier of pass rushers who can get you some production for a year or two and get yourself out of this. I think that's what they're going to have to do because, prime Von Miller is not walking through that door, nor could you afford him, right? So I get what you're saying, Kevin, and it's not going to be the easiest thing in the world. They are banking heavily, I think, on that back end. We don't know what Shavarius Ward's going to do, obviously, but certainly Sauce Gardner is a fabulous player. They're banking a lot, I think, on those moves and those guys staying healthy. But, I agree. It's a risky plan. There's no question about it.
Stephen, always good to talk to you. Appreciate your time on a Wednesday morning, and we'll check in with you again next week.
Good luck to your Canes.
All right.
And Stephen, take that L, brother.
Ooh.
Oh,
man.
Look at that.
Wow. Everything was going great. All of a sudden on the way out, he's just going to smack you in the back of the head.
Good news. 3 months ago, he said the same thing about Illinois over Indiana, Stephen, and we saw how that
this
turned
time
out.
I waited to win. No, I'm talking about the National Sports Writer of the Year thing. He was one of the finalists.
Oh, man.
Take that L, brother.
Man, that's even more below the belt.
Man, are you guys going to have to be separated when the next...
text messages.
Are we going to have to separate the two of you the next time we see you together
Mark
in the same
can hit
room?
the dump button, Stephen, if you would like to just dunk on him right now.
All right, guys. I'll see the rest of you later. Not James, though.
There you go.
Last year at the Combine, we had the Rappaport and Schultz showdown. Now we're
Right.
going to have the Holder and Boyd
Man.
showdown.
Head
at
to
the
the
next
JW
Combine.
Marriott Starbucks,
Starbucks,
and let's
and then we go.
You know
Let's
what's
toss
crazy?
some hands here.
The man put in like the best word ever for me to help me get to the Athletics. So shout out to Stephen Holder, who I had to humble a little bit.
Man, you woke up on a Wednesday and chose violence, James boy.
Oh, we've texted about this, and you know me, got to be petty to the end.
It's the Fan Morning Show with James Boyd over there with his skillet in hand, just smacking people upside the head. Kevin Bowen over here on my left, talking all week about the Indianapolis Colts. And they do have a lot of roster decisions to make if they want to make some room and try to do some things. How hamstrung are they right now as you look at it, Kevin?
What is it, James? Cap space is 40. No, I think it's just north of 50 right now.
Oh, let me check real
I think
quick
it's
for you.
just north of 50. So let's play this out. Let's say franchise tag for Alec Pierce. Okay, that's $28 million. Let's say Daniel Jones gets what? 30 a year?
Spot Track has his market value at 43.
He's not getting that.
No,
coming
no,
off
he's
a
not
torn
getting
Achilles.
that. But
Okay,
I think
let's find a happy
he's 30
medium.
to 35.
Okay,
maybe.
let's find a happy medium. Let's call it 35. So 35 there, 28 for Pierce. So that's what, 53? Or no, that's 63, isn't it? Yeah. So you're obviously gonna have to open up some cap space, and I'm not even getting to Nick Cross or Braden Smith or whoever else would fall on that list that you would like to bring back. I kind of view Braden Smith as he passed the torch. I think Nick Cross actually had a decent year.
I liked him.
But I can't see paying two safeties the amount of money that he likely will merit. So, yeah, I think you got some, it's kind of why I asked Stephen the question. Without a first-round pick, maneuvering this offseason with significant upgrades, it's not sitting there on a platter for you.
Yeah.
You're going to have to do some things Chris Ballard has not done, i.e. cut or trade or restructure Michael Pittman Jr., and then Zaire Franklin, and then Kenny Moore, and then Grover Stewart. I mean, there's a lot of guys. DeForest Buckner, maybe. I mean, there's a lot of guys on that list. You can extend a guy like Nelson and kind of push that cap hit a little bit further out there. And again, this gets into the Anthony Richardson combo. I think the expectation is he will be traded. The Anthony Richardson cap hit for next year is $10.8 million. Just given that number, I cannot see him on your football team. I guess if we want to put a bow tie on it, and James, feel free to chime in with, I know you and I were both kind of in the same scrum with Richardson a couple weeks back. The third season for him with injuries, obviously the eye, ended up being 14 snaps over 2 games. And I guess ironically, weirdly, oddly, the one pass he completed in his third year was to himself.
That right there
That's it in a
should
nutshell.
probably be the end all be all of the
So
Anthony.
can you get a
Richardson
middle-ish
experience.
round pick for him?
Yeah, and I think he would honestly probably welcome a change of scenery.
How about this, though? And I know you've been talking about it throughout the week, but if Mooney Ward did decide to call it quits, that's $20 million.
Well, yeah, again, Ward's money would clear some up, certainly. So that would help you out there. Last thing I'm going to just add on Richardson, because I think some people have asked about this a lot. And again, James, you were right there with me. And there's nothing I hate more than trying to compare, average human injury to football injury. But in listening to Anthony Richardson describe his vision impairment, basically he said the issues for him late this season were not downfield impairment when he was practicing. It was more of the immediate, he used the phrase 1 foot radius around him. Again, my hand is raised as feel free to rip me if this is a stupid comment, but as someone that wears contacts, wears glasses, when I go to the eye doctor, they dilate my eyes. And for the first few hours after a dilation occurs, I can drive, but guys, I can't see this mic in front of me. It's blurry as hell. So it's weird. I always find it odd. Like I can't open up my laptop for like the first 2 hours after I go to the eye doctor. I can barely look at my phone. I've got to hold it like way out to see it. I guess that was the general impairment that Richardson was going through. Again, the hope is that will clear up here in the 2026 offseason. But, he mentioned to us he had trouble at times fielding snaps in practice. So that was a little bit. Anything else, I guess, Richardson related? Because I know you, you also asked him a couple other questions.
What do you think is?
No, I thought that was James.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of it has to do with, will the 1 foot box radius get better? And that's the question that whenever we ask that part of it, the assumption is that it will, but there's no certainty. And I think that is what makes anyone hesitant about his future. So even when we talk about getting a mid to late round pick for Anthony Richardson, the team that makes that deal has to be sure that he can see fully. I would make that move just based off of, okay, I think you're going to get better. So what does that look like? And we didn't get a chance to talk to him or follow up with him on locker cleanout day. A lot of guys came in. Some guys, dipped out pretty quick, and nothing against those guys. But I'm glad we did get that opportunity, because when I did ask him about his future, he said he always thinks about his future. He didn't express any ill will towards the Colts, but it also didn't sound like a ringing endorsement of keep me here so I can prove myself again. I think he knows this is the end of the road. And the eye, in a way, kind of stole an opportunity from him to show something before he might have been headed out anyways, because I think even the narrative around Anthony, for better or worse, would have been different had he been able to play when Daniel Jones went down.
What do you think the realistic the realistic compensation would be if you were to be able to trade him? You said mid-round pick, Kevin. I don't know if you can get a mid-round pick for him based on
you are lucky
the last
if you get
year.
A fifth. I personally think it would be like a sixth.
I think a 6,
Do you
7.
think it's because you're absorbing the $10.8 million?
It's all the things. It's everything.
I think it's because you're absorbing the $10.8 million, the injury history, and the current injury history with the eye. You just don't know fully. And again, if I'm a team, I need to know 100% what your eye limitations are or are not before I make that move.
Look, there are a lot of teams out there that if I were in a troubling quarterback situation, I'd happily send a fifth there. I mean, if I had cap space galore, why not give it a try and see if this is the ultimate wake-up call for him.
Like such a Philly move or something. Not saying Philly would do that. They have a quarterback, but just like you said, they usually kick the tires on a couple of different players.
Part of me thought the Rams, does Stafford have one more year in him? And he watches that and McVay and all that. So I'll be curious.
They're kind of poised to possibly draft someone soon. So could he be like a bridge gap or whatever?
And they have two first-rounders with Atlanta's this year. So, maybe they are going to be in the quarterback market here in April. But I do think it's important for the Colts to try and explore that because, again, without a first-round pick, I think you need to try to replenish some of that. Not that getting a fifth-rounder for him is going to do that. But, I am curious. Is there anything else that you can do from a veteran player? Like that question I asked Steven. Again, that would be very anti-Chris Ballard. Outside of Matt Ryan and Carson Wentz, I can't think of any non-quarterback that he has signed and then later moved on from with notable money left on their deal. Maybe I'm missing somebody, but in his 9 years, that has never been his MO. And we see a lot of teams and or GMs practice that from around the league. So that will be a question certainly for tomorrow and for the rest of the offseason.
So teams that have the most draft capital that maybe would be more intrigued to make a move like that, the Patriots have 10 picks in the 2026 draft. The Browns, Eagles, Dolphins, Rams each have 9. Jaguars, Bills, Bears have 8. So
Gosh, the Patriots are the 2 seed and they have 10 draft
yeah.
picks.
How about the Dolphins? Did you see Tua said he's up for a fresh start somewhere? He said that yesterday.
Yeah, I feel like it's been trending that way. But Mike McDaniel's safe
I don't know.
I suppose so.
as they hire a new GM.
I mean, I'm not sure. I think he showed something, showed a little life there at the end of the season with the
He
way
brought
they
him
played.
back. Yeah.
But yeah, also Tua saying that he's ready for potentially a change of scenery, according to Jeff and whatever
A reset.
you might have read. Yeah, that wasn't a Tua decision. That's a team decision too. I mean, dude, you play very poorly. The team is absolutely going to move on from you.
A lot of possibilities in the offseason. It's going to be fascinating, and we'll keep you apprised on all of it here on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan. Mark?
The Morning Checkdown on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
All right, the Indiana Pacers have lost a franchise record 13 straight games, the latest last night at the Fieldhouse, squandering a 9-point lead to start the fourth quarter. They lose to the Cleveland Cavaliers 120-116. Indiana native Darius Garland scored 29 points for Cleveland. Pascal Siakam had 22 to lead the Pacers, but they were out-rebounded, Kevin, 48-32, and there was a stretch in the first 7-8 minutes of that fourth quarter, just nothing was going right for the Pacers.
Yeah, I found it very fitting that all of a sudden the broadcast crapped out on me with about 3 minutes to go. I think it was a sign from the basketball gods of you don't want to see how this is going to end. You know how it's going to end. But, yeah, first 2, really 3 quarters, they played pretty darn good. And then, like you said, Jeff, it unraveled there pretty quickly. So December 8th, tomorrow will be the 1-month anniversary. Last time we've seen the Colts or the Pacers win a game.
They were outscored 36-23 in that fourth quarter, James, and it was everything. They were being out-rebounded. There were some turnovers. They just couldn't hit shots. It just all cratered at once when it looked so good.
Yeah, it was rough. And I thought Darius Garland, the Indiana native, shout out to Gary, got it done there late, and the Pacers just couldn't really match his output.
All right, college basketball. By the way, Rick Carlisle is still stuck on win number 999. That 1,000th is going to be tough to get. And he's had the back of his players. He said he's really been impressed by how they've been battling. They got to find a way to put it all together. And again, so many different starting lineups. How many did you say already this year? 18?
I believe that's the number, 18.
Man.
Which is the amount they had all 82 games last year.
At another field house last night across town, it was Hinkle Fieldhouse hosting St. John's and Butler. Butler was dead even with St. John's at halftime, but it all went sideways in the second half. St. John's wins at 84-70. Bulldogs committed 20 turnovers on the night. Michael Ajayi had 14 points, 9 rebounds, but did play for much of the second half with 4 fouls. They will play again a week from today at Xavier. They're now 1-4 to start Big East Conference play. Later on tonight, Kevin, doubleheader on the Big Ten Network. Indiana at Maryland, 6:30. Purdue will host Washington at 8:30. So don't even need 2 screens tonight. Just keep it on the Big Ten Network.
Yeah, you look at Purdue. Obviously, we saw Washington Sunday down there in Indiana. They did get a little bit more talented than maybe their record indicates, but Purdue has been great here over the last 5, winning them by an average of 25. Several of those wins also away from home. Important, I think, for Purdue, just take care of business this week. It's Washington and Penn State, and then they got a really tough stretch after that. And for Indiana, I get we fall into this, hey, it's the road, it's the Big Ten. Maryland is the worst team in the Big Ten, and they could be without their best player. Farrell Payne has missed the last 3 games of the knee injury, so Indiana is a 7.5-point favorite. This would be Indiana's first true road win of the year.
I will say this real quick. One player that Purdue has to keep an eye on is Kwamari Peterson, the former Gary Westside guard. He transferred to Washington and is having a hell of a year. And he's someone I will keep an eye on tonight, rooting for him personally, but obviously Purdue needs to win a little bit more than they do.
And the big news in the NFL yesterday, John Harbaugh out as the Ravens head coach after 18 seasons. They missed the playoffs. There had been speculation that maybe he and Lamar Jackson weren't quite seeing eye to eye these days, but Steve Piscotty, the owner, moving on after 18 seasons for a man who's won a Super Bowl, and I think he's 14-11 all time in the postseason.
It was time. They lost too many games in too many stupid ways, and I'm not saying he's not a good coach, but at some point it gets stale, and I feel like that same sort of thing is happening with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Although they made the playoffs, they won a playoff game since 2016. Does that change Monday night against Houston? Possibly, but it was time, in my opinion.
And I guess one note on the Baltimore front, Chuck Pagano went back into coaching last year with John Harbaugh and his staff. So I'll be curious if John gets another job. Will Chuck follow that, or could this be back into retirement for Chuck Pagano?
You get 3 days of playoffs in this wild card round. Saturday, you get a doubleheader. Sunday, a doubleheader. And you get a Monday night football game, too, Kevin. So there you go to your favorite weekend of the year.
Stretch it's Friday into tomorrow. Fiesta Bowl tomorrow. Miami and Ole Miss. Friday, IU and Oregon. I think you can make a strong argument it's the best football week of the year. Again, the Oregon note from yesterday, they will be without Jordan Davidson, their big power back. He actually was the leading rusher against Indiana earlier in the season. He's got 15 touchdowns on the year, so that has been a notable injury for them exiting their win in the Orange Bowl.
All right, that's what's happening in the world of sports right now. Coming up in a minute, we'll talk a little bit more about the Pacers and their dilemma right now. Take some of your feedback on the Colts and what you're feeling and seeing and thinking after all of the events of the last 36 hours. You can text us at 239-1070. Call us up, 239-1070 as well. We're right here on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
I think he gets off to what he's doing down there.
This is how you remind me of what I really am. It's not like you to say sorry. I was waiting on a different story.
You're listening to the Fan Morning Show on Sports Radio 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Been wrong, I've been down, been to the bottom of every bottle.
Good morning and welcome into the Fan Morning Show. James Boyd. Say it again. Sports Writer of the Year in the state of Indiana. How about that?
How about it? Shout out to the people who voted for me. I love you.
Do you think Stephen Holder voted for you?
No, he demanded a recount. I told him it's too late, brother.
Kevin,
Although
Young
we
king
did
of
make
all media, rising king of all media.
shout out to Rick Harlow, but we did make the joke that there might be a recount because in the graphic they put the wrong state.
Was that Mississippi?
It was
I saw
Mississippi.
Mississippi, yeah.
So I
James
got a
working
lot
for the
of,
Clarion Ledger off the
Yeah, I got
Fiesta
a lot
Bowl
of
tomorrow.
Clarion Ledger
Tracking
jokes.
Charlie Weiss Jr.'s
Yeah.
status right
and
now.
SEC jokes, but I promise I do believe I work in the state of Indiana.
Kevin Josh writes in, to be honest, guys, I would seriously consider taking a flyer on Kyler Murray if he becomes available over bringing Jones back off the Achilles. That injury just takes so long to get fully 100% back from. That's Josh. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm not a big Kyler guy. I get the
Hell no.
He's had just as much of an injury history, too.
yeah. Certainly his injury history is definitely no clean bill of health. Yeah, no thanks. I get the questions about Daniel Jones, and obviously I'm very curious to see the length on the Daniel Jones contract, but no thank you on Kyler.
He had to have initially a video game clause in his contract, and the thought of pairing that guy with Shane Steichen does not seem.
Shane,
like a
I'll be
good
right
fit
there
at
for
all.
blitz meetings. So I got to wrap up this Call of Duty
That would
session.
just be terrible. But in all seriousness,
Call of Duty
I
still
think-
a thing, by the way?
I think it probably is. I think all the things that we think are no longer things just get repurposed and put back out there. We just don't know about it because we're out of that stage of our life.
Speaking of
It's still a
repurpose,
thing. Every November it comes out.
is?
It's like
Okay.
it's like an annual like a new edition of Madden that comes out.
speaking of repurpose, was that letter from the Irsay daughters repurposed yesterday from the previous 5 years? Or was there substance in there that was different?
Substance in there was certainly different because they went into specific team decisions. I thought that was different from the last letter, which stayed true to just bringing the guys back. And from that perspective, Kevin, why do you think, number one, the letter was released a day after having a press conference? And two, was there any, again, specific things that stood out to you? Because for me, addressing specific moves that they made was a unique thing that teams usually don't do.
Yeah, again, I know you and I disagree on this. I was fine with the letter. Like, I don't, some people have asked me, hey, was this because they heard so much backlash from the press conference? I don't know if that was it. I mean, I'm not
I
gonna,
do think that is a thing. Like, do you think that comes out without
right.
what happened
I don't,
Monday?
I mean, is everybody watching the press conference? I mean, I get that our audience is probably watching it, but like, there's a lot more people on social media than I think probably viewed the press conference. Right? I mean, how many millions
That's
of
fair.
followers do
Yeah.
they have on
It's the middle of the
Twitter
day, it's a
and
work day, it's all those
Instagram?
things,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, I guess what was different, again, it was probably just further clarification on the press conference. She mentioned, or they mentioned, I guess, because all three daughters signed it. They mentioned the difference in the free agency approach. They mentioned, indirectly, Daniel Jones was mentioned.
Yeah.
Probably more than he was in the press conference. I mean, you asked specifically about Daniel Jones, and I don't think that got a direct answer. The historic start was acknowledged. The trade for Sauce Gardner was acknowledged, which I think at some point we got to get into a bigger conversation there. It almost seemed like the attempt of the trade was enough. It was like, yep, you tried. You sent those 2 first-round picks. That means you're back.
And the paying of big-time free agents before the season started, too.
Right, but I think that might have been the cherry on top, honestly, when you consider the historic start and then you consider that. Now, there's a comment in there about how successful the draft was. Boy, we're putting a lot of eggs in the Tyler Warren basket. And then I would also say, well, have you not paid attention to recent drafts and the 4th overall pick and what that is going to lead to, the ultimate result there? So, again, I'll go back to what I said to lead off the show. If you feel the need, if you have to keep on writing these letters and slightly change the tone and the words of it, it probably tells you everything you need to know about the lack of moves that you're making to substantially change the direction of your franchise. That's the bigger issue for me. I'm all for ownership across every sport being more forthcoming. There are several NFL teams out there, I think the one in Cincinnati being one of them, James, where they hardly hear from their owners. Ever. I mean, you cover the Pacers. How many times has Herb Simon chatted over the years?
Doesn't.
The last time he spoke was in like that little media scrum he did. I can't even call it a scrum. It was
Didn't
like
he call it
media
a little team? I like my nice little team.
Yeah, and I
right?
remember I covered a Bucks game in Milwaukee that night, and they got blitzed without Giannis and without Chris Middleton at the time, and he blew it up a couple months later.
Yeah, so I generally do appreciate, the time and the investment, money mainly, but certainly time as well that fans put into it. I do think hearing from those people, the powers that be, is important. I get that the words are frustrating, and I totally
I was
understand
going to say,
that.
you used to bring up the Pacers. I'm like, look, they went and got Tyrese Halliburton.
Well, sure.
They are loved right now.
Right. I'm not saying that just because you speak, you should be loved. Let me be abundantly clear on that.
Herb Simon didn't have to say anything when he brought in Mr. Halliburton.
I think I've made my piece known on the Colts
For sure.
situation, but I guess one thing that was in there is we believe we can compete for the division and a playoff berth next season. Well, I don't know. Compete maybe isn't the word that I would find as a ringing.
So you like this? You think the second half of the year is much more indicative of who they are than the first half of the year?
Well, I think that 8 years should have been factored in and not ignored.
Yeah.
I would say look at the strength of schedule too. We said make hay in the first half because look at the second half schedule.
and
as soon
again,
as they stepped up in class, they
I
never
don't
won
want
the
to
game.
ignore the first half of the season. They did some very historic things. They beat the brakes off of many teams that we don't see in the NFL. But at the same time, let's look at the entire season, and let's also look at the 8 years prior to that. Or in Shane Steichen's case, the first couple of seasons. The 7-22 record against teams above 500 didn't all happen this year. There are other years that go into that. And I do think it's a very real question. If you just balance the season out more, pick the 50-50 games. If you took Chiefs-Seahawks from the back half of the season, called those wins. If you take Cardinals-Broncos from the first half of the season, call those losses. So now 8-2 becomes 6-4. Are you still trading for Sauce Gardner? Is Carly Gordon that blown away by the first 2 months of the season? Are we sitting here with changes?
I think it was the fact from their perspective, and you talked about this yesterday, James, how historic offensively the Colts were, regardless of the opponent in those first 8 games. They were just scoring on every single drive, it seemed like.
Yeah, and can you replicate that? Can you bring that back? And then can you tweak your roster enough to not only get back to that level, but be better and sustain it for a longer period of time? I think they're obviously banking on injury luck being better. And to be honest, boy, there's injuries in the NFL. Then there's what happened to the Colts, where pretty much every important player felt like was sidelined for multiple games. But then to the point we made earlier in the show, how do you get better defensively with this aging defensive core in particular? How does the Travarius Ward retirement, not retirement thing factor into any decisions you make in your defensive secondary? Because he was supposed to be a big part of the Sauce trade as well. Now, I know the Sauce trade was made separately, but the idea was to pair both the cornerbacks together and just lock people down. And obviously that would help your pass rush and the rest of your defense. There are things and ways that we can certainly get into in the next couple of days. And I think I've talked to Chris Ballard as well about how they can get better from a roster standpoint, even without a first-round pick. But a lot of it, I think, comes back to just hoping you're healthier.
Yeah, and to that point and what we've been talking about, Justin writes in, and I think you've asked this before, Kevin. On Thursday, ask Ballard, should you get another chance? Do you deserve it? With all the money you're getting paid to deliver results, would you give yourself another chance? You asked him a version of that exact question last year at the Combine, Kevin, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, it's gotten very redundant with the questions that are asked of him. So, yeah, I have said this before, the Michael Jordan GM comparison. I think the only Michael Jordan comparison I would make for Chris Ballard is the type of acting he can play in those settings tomorrow.
Oh, I thought you were going to go the Michael Jordan in the front office when he drafted like Kwame Brown. Didn't work out there.
Ooh.
Yeah, to be clear, the Michael Jordan as a player, I think, is who Jim Irsay was referencing back in the day. But
hey, I'm just trying to tie it all together.
I mean, you know how Ballard will be tomorrow. He'll be emotional and he'll be, he'll cuss and he'll
Will
do
he
it
be
all.
pissed?
He'll be pissed.
Will he be pissed?
Out of me for years.
One more time, Mark. What was that?
Y'all have been kicking the out of me for years.
Well, I think he should open the press conference by telling Kevin that he got the wide receivers right. Take that, Alec Pierce,
Do we have that audio, Mark, about the wideouts?
Kevin frickin' Bowen.
It's about time he listened.
They're young, but I do think we're really skilled. I mean, Bowen ought to at least be freaking happy for once. I mean, I got heard about beat over the head with wideouts forever.
Should we now shift to defensive line?
Yes, defensive end specifically.
I do think that's a question. But people get asking me, hey, can you throw this question at him? Can you do this? And do you deserve another year question? And it's a fair question, but also you're not going to get a real answer from that. I mean, what would any of us say if we had a good job and we got kept around for that good job after not delivering? Fire me? I don't know.
He had a quote to Jordan Rodriguez in The Athletic, James, that I did find interesting. Jeff, you're pointing your finger at me.
I think I know where you're heading on this.
Okay,
one.
I don't have the direct quote. I wish I did. But he said something to the effect, James, of like, Jim has kept me, even though he probably should have got rid of me. I'm paraphrasing. I want to be very clear, but
I'll look it up real quick.
Yeah, feel free to save me from my fumbling here. But yeah, that quote certainly sounded different than what I mean. I guess he said something to that effect last year, frankly, when we chatted with him at the combine. But that was a little bit more of the direct nature to it. I think when we asked him that at the combine last year, he pretty much shared the story of, hey, back in 2023, after the Jeff Saturday, Frank Reich, Matt Ryan debacle, we said, all right, we're going to reset. Here comes a first-time head coach. We're going to draft Richardson at 4th overall, blah, 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 and we're going to open up this new window of patience, et cetera, et cetera. And now I guess that has played out, but yet we're still going to employ him moving forward. So, yeah.
I'm just curious to see if he's pissed like Carly's pissed.
Here we go from, and this might be a different quote than you're referencing, Kevin. Here's one where at the end of this story from Jordan Rodriguez, who talked to Chris Ballard a couple months ago, I think at this point.
Yeah, I thought it was like early December.
Yeah, and he says, I'm grateful for him in reference to Jim Irsay. Let me back up. I'm grateful for him. He believed in me and probably stuck with me when he shouldn't have.
There you go.
That's the quote I thought you were heading.
Yeah.
Yep.
Boy.
So at least he's aware of what the situation is.
I'll go back to what I said on Monday to lead off the show, folks. New Year's resolutions abound. You've never seen LA Fitnesses so packed when you drive by them. Boy, the goal in 2026, find you a boss that's got a leash as long as Chris Ballard. And Jeff, I'm looking right at you, brother.
Your leash is fine.
I need it to be longer. I need it to be Ellie De La Cruz size, brother.
Kevin wants to be able to run across the parking lot into the highway right now. That's how long he wants that leash.
Yeah. Get me all the way to the 65-70 split, right, Mark? I could run past Cluster Truck. Big fan, by the way.
Oh, we got that yesterday. I need
that's,
to.
That's your promo code. Big fan, $5 off.
I never got a chance yesterday because we were so busy doing a bunch of stuff here. But man, Evan, if you're listening, I owe you a text. That salad was fantastic yesterday. The Applewood smoked bacon chicken salad.
The leash as long as the Ellie De La Cruz bobblehead line, right, Mark?
Boy. You know it, brother.
Can change at any time, though, guys, for all of us.
It's what that line is doing that's concerning.
What might they be doing? Did Kevin have an insight on that earlier today, or how'd that go?
I can't say that again.
All right. Coming up in a moment, we will talk a little bit more about what's ahead for the Indiana Hoosiers. Coming up on just over 2 days away from a huge college football game. I think we all know that. We'll talk about it next. 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Well, I don't know if it's damn good hair, but I think it's certainly gotten better. And thank you to We Grow Hair Indy for that. They are located northwest side, building number 2 at the Pyramids. And they're ready to help you out today. They can give you answers to the questions that you have. And again, you contact them online. It's wegrowhairindy.com. And they can help you out. I think at the very least, you just owe it to yourself. Whether you've had questions, whether you've had curiosity, head to the experts. And, I think at times, you fall into the quick little social media ad or something along those lines. But you need to go to the best of the business. We're lucky here in the 317 that they are here and they're ready to help us out. So again, that is We Grow Hair Indy, the gold standard for hair restoration, located up at the Pyramids, building number 2, and online, wegrowhairindy.com.
You're listening to the Fan Morning Show on Sports Radio 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
All right, John Herrick, IU, sidelines, pregame, halftime. You'll hear him and Fish coming up on Friday. I think Don Fisher is going to try to make it back in time for IU Nebraska. That's a big game. Nebraska's had a great start to this season, and that is on Saturday there. But all eyes will be on the Peach Bowl coming up. John Herrick going to join us at the top of the hour. We'll get his Rose Bowl thoughts. Jeff, I meant to ask you, was there anything Scott Dolson-wise that stood out from when he joined us earlier in the week?
Just the fact that it seemed clear to him, even after the initial meeting, that Curt Signetti was different. And, I know a lot of people go into their interviews and they all say the same thing. They talk about their organization. They talk about how they're doing this, they're doing that. Sometimes it just resonates in a different way. And Scott Dolson said, I asked him, when did you know that Curt Signetti was different? And he basically told us, James, pretty much right after the first interview. He's like, man, this guy's on to something. And again, what's interesting to me is you hear that from a lot of people in interviews. I've done a million interviews on both sides of the hiring process over the years. Everybody kind of knows what to say. Everybody knows, the expectation, things like that. But it's rare when somebody, like halfway through the interview, and honestly, Kevin, you were like this when I first interviewed you. Like I knew after 10 minutes. It's true. I've told you that
Bowen,
I've
Curt
told you that
Signetti.
before. Have I not told you that before?
Program changers.
But my point being is,
Imagine if Signetti heard this right now.
you asked me.
That's the motivation he might need to get it done even more on Friday.
That's the biggest thing I took away from that is that he, in the course of that conversation, felt this guy's different.
Well, James, I know you were busy with locker room cleanout, but
You wanted the longer leash, Kevin. You got it.
A story that he told was they get on the plane from JMU to come here for the introductory press conference, and he said that Signetti had old school paper and pen with him, and on the list he had was he wanted to get the previous coaching staff, the Tom Allen coaching staff, to provide him with individual lists ranking the current roster from 1 to 50. So you rank how good, you think the roster is. This is my assumption here. My assumption is Curt Signetti probably wasn't planning to keep many of those individuals, but he realizes that they obviously have good intel on the current roster. Curt Signetti was about to flip that roster over rather significantly, but he realized Carter Smith, Omar Cooper Jr., some of these guys are pretty good football players that you want to keep around. And so, that to me is, in a way, I guess you're kind of kicking the guys as they walk out the door, but that's business. And I think that is just a really, it's kind of a savvy move, if you will. And it helps you get a little bit of a head start. Dissecting all this film on the current roster in the era of the portal is very difficult to then evaluate your own roster and then flip that around and add players like he did. So I just think that's kind of a little anecdote that shows you Signetti's very forward thinking.
Yeah. And I can see now when he talks to recruits, when he brings them in, that bite you played earlier. For those who missed it, Mark, can we get that Curt Signetti bite that we played in the last hour for those that are the 8 o'clock hours here on their way to work right now? Like, it's about efficiency. It's about getting done what you need to get done to your standard, whether it takes all day or whether it takes 45 minutes is kind of how I read this. Listen to it yourself.
When I was growing up, I didn't like when people wasted my time. And I don't want to waste the players' time. And I don't want to waste the coaches' time. And I don't make the coaches stay at night. Maybe that's why I got guys been with me so long. All right? And we start at 7:30 in the morning like everybody else. And you stay till your work's done. And I'm not checking to see who's there and who isn't. Right? But I can tell you one thing. When we're in that office, it's all business. It is all business. It's organized, preparation. And we're on that practice field. Look, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, hour 35 to an hour 45. Hour 35 to an hour 45. Monday, walkthrough. Friday, shorter walkthrough. I believe in keeping them fresh and healthy. And our players like the way we run the program. We've had a great culture for the last 8 to 10 years downstairs. And you can't put a value on a great culture. Now, winning helps, no doubt. But the right kind of people believing in your process, your blueprint, your plan helps too.
Think about all that. You're now 25-2 at Indiana. You're playing in the college football playoff. You just beat Alabama up and down the field. And you tell that to a recruit about how things are going to go once you get here. And you throw in on top of that the very important aspect that you pointed out earlier, Kevin. Indiana can play financially with anybody at this point in time. That's a really good recipe for long-term success right there.
Well, and we've talked about this, James. I remember, I think it was you and I, when the Bryant Haynes, the defensive coordinator for IU, re-upped his contract to stay there. I think we did the show right after that. And that, to me, is one of the more not talked enough about headlines of what Curt Signetti is doing. It's that if you look at staff retention, when you think about it, these surprise teams, these teams that get on a run, we see it all over the place. When they reach as big of a peak as Indiana has, the coordinators get jobs elsewhere. They are coveted. They are likely to move on. And now and we see this across all sports. Dan Campbell with the Lions is one that had to deal with it this past year. And yet Indiana has retained Mike Shanahan and Bryant Haynes. And yet their opponent on Friday night in Oregon, their OC is the new head coach at Kentucky. Their DC is the new head coach at Cal. And amidst all this portal chaos, Kentucky, for example, they just got Notre Dame's backup quarterback to flip from Nebraska, where he was committed to start the portal, now to Kentucky. You don't think Will Stein, the OC at Kentucky, or now I should say the head coach at Kentucky, the OC at Oregon, has been dealing with a lot of that drama the past 48 hours? What's Bryant Haynes doing? Watching Duck film endlessly, while this dude has to be worried about his new football team, the job he's about to take. I think that is massive advantage to Indiana. Massive.
Question for you. Do you think the personal relationships, well, I know they factor into it. How much do you think they factor into the retention? Because these are guys he's known for so long as well.
He hired them as like interns back at IUP.
And so we're talking about a decade.
I mean, it matters. Yes, I want to point that out, but in this business, personal relationships
Say
are
coins
only,
can change a lot of things, right?
right. There are some members on the Marcus Freeman's staff at Notre Dame that were in his wedding that left to go to USC. Like there are, at the end of the day, money talks, opportunity talks, and sure, I think it's an element, but that financial backing, and again, Signetti has always been very cognizant of that since day one. I think when he talks about Pam Whitten, Scott Dolson's commitment to football, assistant coaching pool